Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little more bloody than usual. Forget shiny castles and knights on horseback. This is the story of someone no one sings about. Someone who didn't wear armor, but walked into battle every single day. Tonight, we're stepping into the life of a medieval midwife. And let's just say, it sucked. So before we go deeper, take a second to like this video and subscribe. But only if you're into dark history, painful truths, and stories that stick with you long after the screen fades to black. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing who's wide awake with me for these midnight history dives. Now dim the lights. You're 17. Your hands still shake when you touch blood, but no one else will do this job. Your mother used to, until the fever took her. Now her satchel sits where she left it, beside the hearth, cracked leather curled at the corners, still smelling of lavender, mold, and dried iron. You open it slowly, like it might bite. Inside, the rusted shears, stained with things you don't have names for. A bundle of cloth, stiff with old blood. A small jar of crushed mugwort. And the leather-bound page she never let you read. She called them warnings. The village calls you midwife, but only when they need you. The rest of the time, you're just that girl who smells like death and herbs. Your hut is tiny. One room, a hearth, a table, and a bed that still remembers your mother's shape. The walls are lined with dried herbs and prayers. You whisper, both under your breath like spells. You don't believe in magic, but you believe in fear. And everyone fears you just a little. There's no training, no guild, no fatherly priest offering guidance. Everything you know, you learned by watching your mother's hands disappear between the legs of screaming women. You remember her fingers trembling once, just once. The baby was blue, the mother was bleeding. And afterward, your mother sat by, the door all night, staring into the trees like she was waiting for God or the devil. She never spoke about it again. Now it's your turn. Tonight, the candle flickers low and someone's knocking, hard. You wipe your palms on your apron. You reach for the satchel. Your legs don't want to move, but you do anyway. The woman screaming is Marta, the baker's wife. She's 30, too old, they say. You already know what to expect. Torn flesh, panic, maybe a baby born too soon, maybe no baby at all. Your mother never got to warn you about this one. You don't always save them. And they never forgive you when you don't. You're elbow deep in Marta's blood. She's gripping your wrist like she wants to snap your bones, screaming words that stopped making sense 3 contractions ago. Her husband's outside, pacing. The neighbor's girl is weeping in the corner, holding a basin. No one knows what to do, no one but you. And the truth is, you don't know either. There's no school for this. No scrolls passed down from wise women. Only instinct. Only the scent of iron in your nostrils and the memory of your mother's breathing patterns. Only the way her eyes narrowed when a baby was coming sideways. The way her voice changed when she whispered, "Too much blood." That whisper is in your throat now. Marta is tearing. The baby's too big. You've turned it once already, your arms cramping from the effort. She begged you to stop. You didn't. You couldn't. You whisper the Ave Maria, but the words stick to your teeth. God isn't here. God's never been here. Not in this room. The basin fills with blood. The neighbor girl throws up. Marta gasps, long and slow. And suddenly everything is quiet. You hold the baby in your hands. It's not breathing. You rub its chest. You clear its mouth. You slap it gently, like your mother once showed you, though you never understood why. Nothing. You look at Marta. Her eyes are open, but she isn't there anymore. You sit in the blood. You press your palm against the baby's chest, not knowing what you're waiting for. A miracle. A movement. A cry. Something. Instead, you hear footsteps. The door creaks. Her husband enters, and in that moment, you know exactly what's coming. His eyes drop to the still baby, then to Marta's open mouth, then to you. He says nothing. But in his silence, you hear what they'll say tomorrow. She killed them. The girl with the shears and the dead woman's herbs. The one who delivers death. No one teaches you what to do next, so you sit in it. The blood, the silence, the blame. You spend the next day boiling rags no one will use again. Marta's blood won't come out of the floorboards, and you're afraid the scent might never leave your skin. You scrub until your fingers blister, until your arms ache like you've been beaten. You're not sure if you're trying to clean the room or erase what happened in it. Outside, the whispers have started. They don't speak your name. They call you her, that girl, the death woman. A boy throws a pebble at your door. Someone leaves a broken doll on your step, wrapped in a black cloth. You know what that means. They think you're cursed. You scatter salt at the threshold anyway, just like your mother taught you. Salt keeps the evil out, or traps it in. No one agrees. You do it because it's what midwives do. Because if you don't, and something worse happens, they'll blame you again. You sleep with a clove of garlic in your apron pocket. In the morning, a widow comes asking for tansy tea. Her daughter's belly has started to swell. You give it to her quietly, without meeting her eyes. You both pretend it's just for cramps. Superstition runs thicker than blood in this village. The priest calls it sin. The women call it survival. You've seen charms stitched into blankets, prayers carved into the lintels, coins buried under beds, a rabbit's foot still damp tucked in the pocket of a dying child. They all want miracles, but they fear the hands that deliver them. Your hands, they think you know too much, that you've seen too much, that no woman should be that close to life and death at the same time and come away untouched. So they touch iron after they see you. They whisper prayers behind your back. Some cross themselves, some spit. And yet, they keep coming. Because when the bleeding starts, or the belly hardens too soon, or the baby comes feet first in the dead of night, you're the only one they have. Even if they hate you for it, even if they'd rather believe it's witchcraft than woman's work. The first time you see a woman die under your hands, you're 16. Her name was Ellen. She had red hair and 7 living children. Her laugh used to echo from one end of the village to the other. You remember her humming when you arrived. Even in pain, she was humming. The baby came fast, too fast. She screamed once, then went silent. When you lifted the blanket, the blood had already soaked through. It kept coming, and coming, a tide with no end. Your mother pushed herbs between her teeth, chanted names of saints, pressed cloth against her thighs. You held her hand, cold, already cold. Your mother whispered, "Don't, let go, not yet," but you did. The floor under your knees was sticky and red, the smell thick like rust and rot. And when it was over, when both the baby and the mother were still, your mother didn't speak. She just sat beside the body, tracing symbols in the blood. Not crosses, older shapes. She thought you weren't looking. Ellen's husband didn't blame you, not out loud. He buried his wife beneath their floorboards like most do, next to a cradle that would never rock. But 2 weeks later, your mother's name was carved into the church door. Not a prayer, an accusation. Midwife, harlot, witch. You asked her what it meant. She only said, "It means someone's looking for someone to burn." Now all these years later, the memory still clings to your ribs like frost. You see Ellen's pale face when you sleep. You hear your mother whispering words not found in scripture. You feel your knees sink into the same soaked floorboards over and over. You thought death would get easier. It hasn't. And the worst part, it isn't even the dying that haunts you. It's what they do to the living afterward. The questions, the suspicions, the way the village looks at you like death followed you home. They buried Ellen under her house, but they buried the guilt in you, and it's never stopped bleeding. Blood has memory. That's what your mother used to say, in the quiet hours when the fire had burned down and the screams were long past. It remembers the women it leaves behind, You didn't understand her then. Now you do. You sit by the hearth, fingers aching from grinding herbs, and think about how many women you've watched bleed. How many didn't stop? How many still haunt the corners of your hut when the candle flickers low? And how the church is watching. They say childbirth is punishment for Eve's sin, that pain in the womb is divine justice, that death in labor is a holy cleansing. And yet, when a woman dies giving birth, they look at you. Not at Eve. Not at God. You. Because you were there. Because your hands were in her. Because you whispered names that weren't saints. Because your fingers smelled of pennyroyal and feverfew instead of holy water. That's what frightens them, isn't it? Not the bleeding, the knowing. You know what goes on inside a woman's body. You speak of wombs and waters, cervix and cord, when no man dares even say the word belly aloud. You've seen the truth, and truth to them is dangerous. So they twist it. They call your wisdom unnatural, your skill a threat, your herbs a doorway to the devil. They say your teas kill babies, that your prayers summon spirits, that your eyes glow when the moon is full. One night, a man spits at your feet as you pass and mutters, "Witch." You don't flinch. But inside, something recoils. Not because it's the first time, but because it never stops hurting. The more women you save, the more dangerous you become. You stitch a torn womb, and they call it meddling with fate. You cradle a stillborn, and they say it's your fault. You help a girl pass a child she was forced to carry, and they threaten to report you to the priest. The church calls it heresy, you call it mercy, but mercy, like blood, always leaves a stain, and no one's coming to wash yours away. The smell gets into everything. It clings to your shift, your nails, the straw in your bedding. Even when you wash your hands raw, it stays. A mix of blood, sweat, bile, and something else. Something colder. Something final. You try to cover it with rosemary, a sprig tied to your wrist, bundles hung from the rafters, crushed leaves scattered under your boots before you enter a birth. Chamber. It's what your mother taught you. Rosemary for remembrance, rosemary for the dead. Sometimes it almost works. But you've seen too much to believe it can hold the scent of death back for long. The latest one was barely 15. Her name was Lena, and her belly had swelled before her voice had even changed. You knew the signs, the way she didn't look you in the eye, the way her father hovered at the door, face carved from stone. You lit the rosemary, you burned the sage. But it wasn't enough. The baby came wrong, sideways, then backward, then not at all. And Lena, she tore, like paper in the rain. You worked fast, quicker than ever. But the blood came anyway, thick and fast, like it had somewhere to be. She stopped crying halfway through, like she'd just stepped out of her own body. Her father didn't speak, he didn't need to. He just picked her up and carried her home like a sack of flour. You stayed behind, kneeling in the puddle she left behind, your hands still inside the linens, feeling for something that wasn't there. You wanted to scream, but screaming is for people who haven't seen this before. So you burned more rosemary and told yourself it helped, but when you walked back to your hut, the scent followed you. It always does. A priest passed you in the road. He paused, looked you up and down, sniffed. Then he said, "You smell like sin," and you smiled, because he was right. But not the way he thought. You smell like women they can't save. Like the pain they pretend is holy. Like truth. And truth terrifies them. The plants are your only friends. They don't talk back. Don't judge. Don't cry when things go wrong. They just grow. Between the cracks in the chapel walls. In the shadows of trees. Along the edges of graves. And you know every single one of them by name. Your fingers move with muscle memory, pinching, plucking, crushing. Pennyroyal for pain, rue for menstruation, black cohosh for contractions, mugwort to ease the soul's crossing. each with its own smell, its own danger, its own price. You never write any of it down, you can't. If they find you with parchment marked in plant lore, they'll call it a grimoire. They'll drag you to the square. They'll bind your hands and ask if you consort with spirits. You don't, but you do speak with the wind sometimes. And once, you swear you heard your mother's voice when the mandrake bloomed out of season. There's no safe knowledge anymore. Every root you touch might as well be a blade. Every tincture, an accusation. The same herbs that save a mother in the night become evidence of sorcery in the light of day. They call them the devil's herbs, as if the devil himself planted them beside your door. But you know better. You've seen them work. You've watched a tea made from angelica coax a baby from a dying womb. You've packed a wound with yarrow and watched the bleeding stop in seconds. You've slipped a girl a bitter draught under her tongue and stopped a child from entering a world that would have swallowed her whole. The church says only God decides life and death. But God isn't the one kneeling in the blood-soaked straw. You are. And if that means learning the ways of bark and root and leaf, so be it. Still, each time you gather them, you glance over your shoulder, because one day, someone will follow you. They'll see the bundle clutched to your chest. They'll whisper. They'll warn. They'll wonder how many women you've saved, and how many more you've cursed. And when they finally knock on your door, holding a torch instead of a child, they won't be asking for herbs. You've learned to listen, not just to the mother's breath or the baby's heartbeat, but to the silence. That terrible silence. The moment when the world holds its breath and the newborn doesn't cry. You're there, knees pressed into the cold floor, hands slick with blood and wet linen. You try to coax air into lungs that refuse to fill. You slap the baby's back. You whisper prayers, some from the church, others from your mother's secret tongue. But sometimes, it's not enough. The baby lies still. You feel the mother's panic, sharp and raw, slicing through the room like a blade. She grabs your arm, tears streaming down her face, begging. Is she alive? You don't answer. You can't. Because sometimes, life doesn't come easy. Because sometimes, death waits quietly in the shadows of the womb. You clean the silent body, swaddling it in cloth soaked with rue and lavender. Herbs for peace. For the journey beyond. The mother wails, a sound so broken it shatters your heart. The neighbors say you killed the baby. They say you did it on purpose. You are the witch, the bringer of death. You are the one who stands over the body, eyes empty, hands trembling. But you know the truth no one wants to face. Sometimes babies die. Sometimes the blood flows too fast. The cord wraps too tight. The breath simply never comes. And in this village, that truth is a curse. The mother's grief is a wildfire that burns you alive. You become a ghost, a scapegoat. The village talks behind closed doors. The priest prays louder. The husbands glare. And you wonder, in the dead of night, if you'll ever be free from the weight of silence. You speak a language no one else understands. Not the Latin the priests mumble, nor the hushed gossip in the market square. Your words are whispered in shadows, in glances, in the tight squeeze of a hand. They are the names of bones, of muscles, of the hidden dance inside a woman's body. You know the cervix like the back of your hand. The placenta like an old friend. The umbilical cord, a twisted lifeline you must sometimes cut. Careful, careful, careful. Your voice softens as you instruct a terrified mother. Push when you feel the fire. Breathe with me. You're stronger than this pain. You teach without words the ritual of birth. How to balance fear and faith. How to welcome pain as a passage. How to sing a lullaby only you know. Your fingers move with practiced ease. Yet, every birth feels like stepping into a battlefield, where one wrong move means death. And yet, you do not tell the truth to outsiders. No one can hear how the water breaks like a flood inside the body. No one can see the raw red wound of a torn perineum. No one knows the secret language of midwives, passed down from mother to daughter, in hushed voices and trembling hands. You learn to hide the screams, to cover the stains, to smile when the village praises the priest's prayers, but knows nothing of the night you spent fighting death in the dark. This language is your shield and your prison. For every word you speak in secret is another reason to fear you, another reason to call you witch. And every time you use it, you carry the weight of all the women who came before you, and all the ones who might not survive. You never forget the weight of those eyes, not the mothers, not the husbands, but the church's. The priest's gaze feels like a cold blade, slicing through you even when he's miles away in the chapel. He watches what you do, how you handle life and death in that cramped hut, how you speak in whispers, how you trust herbs over holy water. To the church, you're not just a healer, you're a threat. The church fears what you know, that birth is messy, brutal, often cruel, that the body holds secrets they cannot explain, that women like you wield power beyond their prayers. You hear the sermons, the warnings. Women who meddle with God's design will face the fires of hell. You see the crosses nailed to your door. You feel the cold fingers of suspicion creeping into every corner of your life. One night, the priest visits you under the guise of blessing your tools, but his eyes burn with accusation. He asks about your herbs, your rituals, your mother's death. He warns you, turn from your dark ways, lest you join her in the flames. You smile politely, but know better. You live in a world where faith is a weapon, and you are the target. The church is watching, waiting, judging, and you pray, not to God, but to survival. Because in this game of life and death, the midwife's greatest enemy is not the pain or the blood. It's the holy wrath that seeks to burn her alive. When a baby doesn't cry, the village turns on you. No one asks about the quiet fight inside the womb, the tiny heart that faltered against impossible odds. They want someone to blame, and you, the midwife, become their scapegoat. Whispers follow you like a shadow. She cursed the child. Her hands carry death. Witchcraft. You carry the weight of every stillborn like a stone pressed into your chest. You remember Anna, the first mother who lost her child while you were at her side. Her sobs still echo in your ears. Her husband's glare still burns your skin. You did everything you could, but it wasn't enough. In the days after, the village stares. They avoid your eyes. They refuse your help. Because death in childbirth is sin, and you are the sinner. You try to explain, to show your hands stained with effort, not evil, but words are worthless. Their fear is louder than reason. Sometimes the local lord demands answers. Sometimes the priest demands confession. And sometimes the women you saved refuse to speak your name in public. You are isolated. You are feared. You are blamed. And still, you return to the next birth. Because no matter how many babies are lost, someone must face the blood, the cries, and the silence. And that someone is you. The world is changing. Or so they say. Men in long robes arrive, books in hand, eyes full of certainty. They come with instruments cold and sharp, unlike your worn knives and battered shears. They call themselves physicians, scholars of the body, heirs to ancient knowledge. But they don't know the smell of blood at dawn. They don't hear the desperate cries of women locked in labor. They don't feel the pulse beneath trembling fingers or the pull of a life hanging by a thread. And yet, they want your place. The village lords and wealthy families invite them into their chambers, eager for modern medicine and new miracles. They belittle your knowledge, your herbs, your rituals. They mock the dirt beneath your nails and the superstitions you cling to. Some call you ignorant, others say you're dangerous. You watch as your sisters, midwives who once shared your secrets, are pushed aside, forced to hand over their tools, forced to stand silently while men who never felt a child's head crowning lecture on birth. But birth is not a book to be studied from a distance. It is blood and sweat, fear and faith. You remember the sharp sting when a man's cold fingers replaced your warm hands, the hush that fell over the room as he declared you obsolete. You think of your mother, whose hands guided countless babies into the world. And you know this fight is not just about medicine, it's about power, about who controls life and death, and about the erasure of women like you. The male physicians encroach, but you are not ready to disappear. You never swore a grand oath like the priests or physicians. No parchment, no ceremony. But every day, as you light the candles and prepare your tools, you make a silent vow to the mothers, to the unborn, to the fragile thread between life and death you hold in your hands. You swear to be present when the first scream tears through the night, to fight the bleeding, the pain, the darkness, to never turn away, even when fear claws at your throat. The oath you carry is not written in ink, but in scars, in sleepless nights spent praying for a child who won't come, in the sharp taste of blood and sweat on your tongue, in the whispered promises made beneath trembling breaths. It's a vow forged by generations of women who came before you. Your mother, your grandmother, women whose names have been lost to time, but whose hands shaped every birth. This oath binds you to a lonely path, a path of sacrifice, suspicion, and sorrow, but also one of fierce love and stubborn hope. Because every child you help into the world is a victory against death, a small miracle in a harsh world. You clutch your mother's rusted shears and close your eyes. This is your calling. And, no matter the dangers, the blame, the dark whispers, you will stand at every threshold between life and death. Because you are a midwife, and your oath will not break. Blood is the mark of your work, and your curse. Every birth stains your hands with the vivid red of life's fragile edge. But in the eyes of the village, that blood is tainted. It clings to you like a shadow, a brand that sets you apart. The midwife's blood is different. It whispers of death, of secrets, of things best left unseen. You notice the way neighbors avert their gaze, the way children hush when you pass, the way the local baker refuses to offer a smile. You are a woman marked by blood, and in this world, that means you are dangerous. The village women spread rumors that you steal children's souls, that you curse the mothers who cross you, that your hands stained with birth are also stained with sin. The church preaches purity, but your work lives in the messy, the imperfect. You are both healer and outcast. Your clothes carry the scent of herbs and blood. Your nights are haunted by the cries of babies and mothers alike. You try to wash away the stains, but the world never forgets. And so you carry the stigma with quiet pride, the burden of a woman who stands where life and death collide because no one else will. Your tools are crude, worn, and stained with centuries of blood. Rusted shears, wooden clamps, ragged linen. Each carries a story of pain, fear, and desperate hope. You sharpen the blades in silence, knowing every cut could save a life or end one. No shiny instruments from the physicians here, only what your mother left you, passed down through generations. You grip the rough wood of your birthing stool, steadying yourself against the chaos. Herbs crushed into poultices to soften the pain, roots boiled into bitter teas to hasten labor. You know the weight of these tools, not just physical, but spiritual. Each has its risk. Each could be your downfall. The shears that cut the cord might tear flesh too deep. The herbs you trust might poison instead of heal. You have no anesthesia, no antiseptics, only prayers and grit. And sometimes, that is not enough. You think of the nights you fought to pull a baby free with bleeding hands, the mother's screams echoing in your ears, the wounds you stitched with trembling fingers, the lives you saved and those you lost. These tools are your lifeline and your curse. They bind you to a world that is unforgiving and brutal. You polish them in the dim candlelight, knowing that tomorrow they will once again dance on the edge of life and death. Because in this unforgiving world, a midwife's tools are all she has. No one talks about the secrets you carry, the things you've seen behind closed doors, the lives hanging by a thread while the world outside goes about its business. You swallow the screams, the tears, the curses whispered in pain. Your silence is both shield and shackle. You keep your mouth closed to protect the women who trust you, to protect yourself from the prying eyes of the church and the law. But that silence comes at a price. Loneliness, isolation, suffocating weight pressing down on your chest. Sometimes you want to scream back, to shout about the blood you've spilled and the lives you've saved. But who would listen? Who would believe the midwife and not the priests? Your silence becomes a prison. It eats at you, twisting your heart. Yet, you carry it like a badge, because speaking out means risking everything. Your reputation, your safety, your very life. So, you bear the price for the mothers, for the babies, for the fragile, broken lives you hold in your hands. And in that silence, you find a strange kind of strength, a fierce determination to keep going, no matter the cost. Your work lives in the shadows, hidden from the eyes of the world. The village only sees the surface, the screams, the blood, the fear. But beneath the thatched roofs, in dim corners and candlelit rooms, your true world unfolds. You trade whispered advice with other midwives, sharing remedies and warnings no one else dares speak. You keep secret the rituals that ease the pain, the herbs that hasten labor, the prayers that calm the soul. These secrets are precious, passed down from mother to daughter in hushed tones. They protect you, and they bind you. Sometimes, you wonder what might happen if these secrets slipped out. If the church discovered your potions, your chants, your ways, they would call it witchcraft. And then, the shadows would turn against you. But without these secrets, you are powerless. You rely on them in the dead of night when the cries grow desperate. You clutch a bundle of herbs, your hands trembling. You whisper ancient words, hoping to coax life back into the tiny body struggling to breathe. These secrets are your lifeline. But they also make you vulnerable. Because in a world ruled by fear and faith, knowledge is dangerous. And sometimes, you fear that your secrets will be your undoing. You carry more than just tools and herbs. You carry the weight of life itself. Every birth is a gamble where you hold the fragile thread between hope and despair. The mother's trembling hands grasp yours as sweat and tears mix, her cries ripping through the silence. You see the fear in her eyes, a mirror of your own. You are the bearer of impossible responsibility, and it crushes you. When a birth goes wrong, the blame lands squarely on your shoulders. Yet no one sees the sleepless nights spent by the side of women fading away. No one hears the silent prayers you whisper over cold bodies, or the screams you stifle when your own heart breaks. You know every scar on your hands tells a story of pain and perseverance. You carry the stories of women who came before you, their courage, their heartbreak, their silent suffering. And you carry the sorrow of those you couldn't save. It is a burden that isolates you, alienates you. The village respects you with fear, sometimes with hatred. You are both healer and scapegoat. The weight is unbearable at times, yet you never turn away, because no one else will stand where you do. At the threshold of life and death, you are the midwife, and your burden is eternal. The whispers start small, like a shadow creeping at the edges of your life. A woman loses her baby, and suddenly your name is tangled with dark words. Witch, sorceress, devil's hand. The villagers' fear twists into suspicion, and suspicion sharpens into outright accusation. You know the stories. Midwives who were dragged from their homes, bound and beaten, burned at the stake for powers they never asked for. The church preaches that your knowledge is unnatural, that your herbs are poisons, that your presence is a curse. You see the cold eyes of the priest as he watches you, the murmured prayers meant to bind your soul. You feel the weight of every fearful glance. In this world, knowledge is power, and also the deadliest sin. You clutch your mother's rusted shears tighter, knowing that one wrong word, one misstep, could mean your doom. Still, you work in the shadows, defying the fear. You soothe mothers, calm their trembling hands, and pray that your work will speak louder than their hatred. But deep down, you know the truth. Your life balances on a knife's edge, where one whispered accusation can end everything, and, in the dark, the threat of the flames never truly fades. The church's eyes never leave you. They watch from the shadows of the chapel, from whispered confessions, from the trembling lips of fearful villagers. You feel their judgment like a cold, hand clutching your throat. Their sermons speak of sin and salvation, of purity and corruption, and you, caught between life and death, are seen as a threat. The priests preach that childbirth is a divine miracle, one only properly overseen by God's will. Your knowledge, your hands, your herbs, they say it interferes with sacred design. You hear the rustle of robes and the muttered prayers asking for your soul to be cleansed. Sometimes a priest visits under the guise of blessing, but you see the suspicion burning in his eyes. He watches your every move, your every breath. The church wields power not just over souls, but over bodies, and your body is battleground. Your work is labeled unnatural, sinful, unholy. You know that one misstep, one birth gone wrong, could turn the tide against you. And in this dark world, the church's watchful gaze can mean exile, or worse. Yet still, you show up, night after night. You cradle the trembling. Mothers, whisper prayers of your own, because without you, the darkness wins, and the church's eyes may watch, but your hands still hold the fragile thread of life. Every birth is a battle fought on a razor's edge. You stand at the crossroads where life and death collide, your hands slick with sweat and blood. The mother's body trembles beneath your touch, fragile, unpredictable, raw with pain. You know the risks better than anyone. One wrong move, one missed sign, and a life could slip away forever. You've seen it before. The silent stillness of a newborn who never cries. The hollow eyes of a mother mourning what could have been. You are the last line of defense in a world where death lurks in every shadow. The weight of that responsibility crushes you. You pray silently, begging whatever gods will listen to grant you strength. Your heart pounds in your chest like a war drum as the seconds stretch into agonizing minutes. The screams and sobs blur around you, but you focus on the tiny life struggling to enter the world. Your hands shake, but you do not falter. You must not falter, because the life on the line is more than just a body. It is a hope, a future, a fragile thread connecting generations. And when the baby finally cries, when the mother's eyes fill with tears of relief, you feel a fleeting victory, a moment of light in the endless darkness. But you know this battle will come again and again, because in your world, life is never guaranteed. Your hands are your tools and your weapons against death. Every touch is deliberate, a delicate balance between strength and gentleness. You know how to ease pain with pressure, how to coax a body into giving life. The herbs you crush into poultices aren't just medicine, they're lifelines, handed down in whispers. You place cool leaves on burning skin, rub bitter teas into swollen joints, and bind wounds with strips of rough linen. Sometimes your touch, is the only comfort a woman will know in her darkest hours. You feel the weight of her trust, a fragile thread you dare not break. But healing is never simple. You fight infections with nothing but water from the well and hope. You whisper prayers over every wound, every tear. You learn to read the subtle signs, a fever's rise, the pulses, falter. You become part healer, part soothsayer, a guardian of fragile lives. Yet every healing is a gamble, every recovery, a fragile victory against the relentless tide of death. Your touch carries both hope and fear, because you know that no matter how skilled you become, some wounds will never close. Some lives will slip through your fingers, leaving scars deeper than any wound. Still, you press on, knowing that your hands, stained with blood and soothed by prayer, are the only hope for many. They say the physicians are coming. Men in fine robes, armed with books and instruments you can barely name. You've heard the rumors that these men want to take over your work, to replace your hands with cold, calculating tools. The village whispers that doctors will bring proper medicine, that your herbs and prayers are backward superstition. But you know the truth. These physicians fear what you represent. You, the midwife, hold a power they can't claim. You've been the guardian of birth for generations, trusted by mothers who would never invite a man into their sacred space. The doctors bring steel and arrogance, but no understanding of the sacred trust between a woman and her midwife. You dread the day they arrive, when their science will drown out your whispered knowledge. You imagine the cold sterility of their chambers, the cold indifference in their eyes. You wonder if your role will be erased, your wisdom forgotten, your very existence threatened. And yet, you fight on. For every mother who needs your hands, for every child who must be brought safely into the world. You carry the fear of the physician, but you carry hope too, because no man can replace the bond forged in sweat, blood, and tears. Every birth unfolds beneath a heavy, suffocating shadow, the looming spectre of death. You can feel it, in the cold sweat on your brow, the quickened breath of the mother, the tightening of your own chest. The air thickens with fear, thick as the smoke from the hearth's dying embers. You cradle the woman's trembling body, whispering prayers while the hours drag on like an endless nightmare. Outside, the world moves on, but inside this small, dark room, time is a cruel enemy. You watch the flicker of life ebb and flow, sometimes barely a heartbeat, sometimes a sudden rush of hope. But death waits patiently. You know that no matter how skilled you are, how fiercely you fight, it might claim its toll tonight. The stillborn, the mother who fades into silence, the cries that turn to quiet sobs, all haunt your nights. And when death comes, it is merciless. You hold the lifeless body, feel the coldness seep into your fingers, and choke back a scream. You offer what comfort you can to grieving families, your heart breaking in silent solidarity. In the shadow of death, you are both healer and witness to despair. You carry scars invisible to others, scars of loss, of helplessness, of a world that demands miracles but offers little mercy. Yet, somehow, you return to the bedside again and again, because life flickers on, fragile and fierce, and you are the fragile guardian standing between hope and oblivion, in a world where danger lurks in every shadow. Rituals are your armor. You move through the birthing chamber like a priestess, murmuring incantations passed down through generations. Candles flicker as you draw protective symbols in the dust. You sprinkle herbs, sage, rue, and vervain, to ward off evil spirits hungry for the vulnerable newborn and mother alike. The women clutch talismans, tightly gripping crosses or charms, their eyes wide with a mixture of hope and terror. You speak prayers both sacred and secret, calling on saints and old gods alike. Your hands tremble as you trace the sign of the cross, knowing full well that these rituals are as much a shield for your own fragile courage as for the souls you tend. Superstition and faith entwine, a fragile lifeline against the unknown. You know the power of these rituals, whether divine or psychological, to steady the heart and calm the soul. But you also know their limits. The darkness does not always retreat, and when it doesn't, you whisper harder, pray louder. You are caught between worlds, the seen and unseen, the sacred and profane. Your rituals protect, but they also remind you of your vulnerability. Because in the end, no charm, no prayer, no symbol can guarantee safety, only your hands, your knowledge, and your unyielding will to survive. You live on the edges of the village, both physically and socially. Neighbors avoid your gaze, crossing the street when you pass. Whispers follow you like a dark cloud, talk of curses, strange practices, and unnatural knowledge. You have no family left, no allies but the shadows. The midwife's life is one of solitude. You carry burdens others refuse to bear, but gratitude is scarce, replaced by suspicion and fear. At the market, women clutch their children tighter when you approach. Men shake, their heads muttering about meddling witches. Your only companions are the cold night and the faint flicker of the hearth fire. Loneliness gnaws at your soul, deeper than any physical pain. Yet you persist. Because despite the scorn, despite the isolation, you know your work matters. You are the last hope for countless mothers and babies. And even if the village shuns you, you hold a power few understand. You are the guardian of life in a world that fears what it cannot control. Your mother's old leather-bound book lies open on the table, its pages yellowed and fragrant with age. Within its fragile leaves are the secrets of healing, whispered through centuries, herbs that soothe pain, staunch bleeding, and coax life from the brink. You crush dried yarrow between your fingers, feeling the faint warmth of its power. Rue's bitter scent fills the air, a reminder of the fine line between medicine and poison. You've learned to trust your senses, the sharp tang of sage, the calming touch of lavender, the fiery bite of garlic. Each plant holds a story, a promise, a peril. But the knowledge comes at a price. One mistake, too much of a potent herb, and the mother's fever rises instead of falling. Too little, and the pain rages on. Your hands tremble as you mix tinctures by candlelight, knowing lives hang in the balance. And worse still, some in the village whisper that your herbs are curses disguised as cures. You hear the stories of midwives accused of poisoning, their brews blamed for stillbirths or death. Yet, you press on, weaving your own fragile magic from root and leaf. Because in this dark world, your secret knowledge is a beacon of hope and a dangerous weapon. The night is your constant companion, and it never offers rest. When the village sleeps, the cries begin, urgent, desperate, echoing through the cold air. Your heart pounds as you wrap your cloak tight and step into the dark. The path to the mother's home is slippery with mud and shadowed by twisted trees. Each step feels like walking deeper into a nightmare where death waits patiently. You arrive to find the woman's body racked with pain, her screams slicing through the stillness. There is no time to hesitate. You light a candle, the trembling flame casting flickering shadows on the walls. Your hands move swiftly but carefully, applying pressure, guiding the child, soothing the agony. Outside, the wind moans like a restless spirit, a reminder of the dangers that lurk beyond. You work through exhaustion and fear, knowing that every moment counts. The mother's life and the newborn's depend on your skill and nerve. When dawn finally breaks, the world seems distant, almost unreal. But you remain, drained and unwashed, the weight of the night heavy on your shoulders. This is your life, the endless cycle of midnight calls and fragile lives, and no matter how dark it gets, You are the light that births hope. When a birth goes wrong, the world turns against you like a ravenous wolf. You hear the whispers behind your back before you even reach the house. Blame, suspicion, dread. The mother lies pale and silent, her body failing despite your desperate efforts. The child doesn't cry. It never breathes. You stand alone in the cold room, the weight of failure crushing your chest. The village doesn't see the hours you spent fighting, the prayers whispered into the dark. They only see death, and they blame you. Accusations of witchcraft flicker in their eyes. Some say you cursed the mother, that your herbs were poison, that you invited the devil's work. You want to scream, to beg for understanding, but words fall like ashes on deaf ears. Your reputation crumbles overnight, and with it, your fragile hold on survival. You know another failure could mean exile or worse, a trial for witchcraft. Your hands shake, stained with the blood of lost lives. Every loss is a wound that never heals, a shadow that follows you into every room, but you can't stop. Because even when failure comes, life still demands your presence. The price is high, but the cost of quitting is higher. The heavy eyes of the church are never far from your doorstep. Priests preach that childbirth is a divine trial, a test of faith and endurance, but their gaze is sharp, judging every failure as sin, every complication as a sign of God's wrath. You know the sermons, how midwives are sometimes called witches, servants of the devil cloaked in holy deceit. The church's approval feels like a fragile thread holding your life in place. A whispered prayer in the shadows might save you from suspicion. You carry rosaries alongside your herbs, crossing yourself before every birth, but beneath their blessing lies a constant fear that your work might be seen as heresy. Sometimes the priests come knocking, their questions veiled but accusing. You can feel the weight of their scrutiny, the cold suspicion behind their polite smiles. You walk a tightrope between faith and survival. Every chant, every ritual is a mask worn to keep the church's shadow at bay, because one misstep could mean excommunication, or worse. You are both servant and suspect in a world where the divine and the deadly blur. Before you touch the first mother, before you cradle the fragile life emerging from the darkness, you swear an oath. It is not written in any holy book, but passed from mother to daughter, a secret pact whispered in candlelight. You vow to protect life at all costs, even your own, to guard the sacred knowledge of birth, even when fear and hatred press close, to stand firm when the screams pierce the night and the cold of death lingers just beyond your grasp. You know this oath is a double-edged sword. It binds you to a path of sacrifice and solitude, but also of fierce purpose. It is a promise to the women who trust you with their lives, a bond that transcends pain and terror. When your hands shake with exhaustion, when your heart aches from loss, the oath steels you. It reminds you that you are not alone, that through centuries, countless midwives before you have borne this burden. You are part of a lineage forged in blood, sweat, and love, an unbroken chain of guardians standing between life and oblivion, and though the world may turn its back, your oath remains your unyielding light. You are more than a healer, you are a keeper of ancient secrets, a figure straddling the thin line between medicine and magic. The village fears your knowledge, whispering that your herbs and prayers are spells, your hands weaving unseen forces. Some say midwives conjure life itself, bending nature's laws. Others say you bargain with dark powers, trading souls for safe births. You carry the weight of these accusations like a shadow, your every gesture watched with suspicion. Your practice blends faith and folklore, charms to protect, chants to calm, tinctures that heal or harm. You know the power of belief, how a whispered word can soothe or strike terror, but true magic lies in your touch, in the knowledge etched into your bones. Still, this magic is dangerous. A single misstep, a failed birth, and you risk the wrath of villagers and church alike. Magic and medicine are inseparable in your world, yet both make you vulnerable. You are a healer, a sorceress, a scapegoat, all at once. And the fine line you walk grows thinner with every birth. You've heard the rumors. The barbarians of the town, the barber surgeons, are coming. Men with blades, with grim tools, claiming to modernize childbirth. They say your knowledge is primitive, your herbs useless. They promise painkillers and cleanliness, but their methods are brutal. You fear their arrival, not just for the women, but for yourself. These men are strangers to the sacred trust you hold. Their knives cut without mercy, their hands untrained in the tenderness a mother needs. They carry authority, patrons, money, and the backing of the growing medical guilds. You know they will push you aside, take your place with cold efficiency. And if a birth goes wrong under their care, they blame you, the midwife, the witch, who once held the power. You are trapped between the old world and the new, a relic fading in the harsh light of change. But you are not ready to surrender. You clutch your herbs and tools tightly, determined to fight for your place, even if it means facing down steel. You are not alone, even if the village thinks so. In shadowed corners and quiet cottages, other midwives gather, a hidden sisterhood bound by shared knowledge and survival. They pass down secrets through whispered conversations, coded herbs, and discreet signs. When the church turns blind eyes, when the barber surgeons encroach, your network becomes a lifeline. You exchange remedies, share stories of failed births, and warn each other of witch hunts lurking on the horizon. This clandestine web offers protection and power, a fragile resistance against the forces that seek to erase you. Yet trust is scarce. Betrayal could mean death. Every meeting is cloaked in caution, every word weighed. But in this secret sisterhood, you find moments of hope, strength in solidarity. It's a quiet rebellion, fought not with swords, but with wisdom and quiet courage. Together, you carry the ancient flame of midwifery, refusing to let it flicker out. You know the worst part is not the pain or the blood, it's the waiting. Hours stretch into days, filled with tense silence and whispered prayers. You sit by the mother's side, hands poised but helpless as the body battles nature. Outside, the village carries on, oblivious to your vigil. Time moves in slow, cruel circles, each tick a reminder of what's at stake. Your mind races with what-ifs. Your heart clenches with fear. Will the child survive? Will the mother's strength hold? You grip your tools tighter, willing your knowledge to manifest miracles. The flicker of candlelight casts monstrous shadows on the walls, mirroring your growing dread. Sometimes the waiting is broken only by screams of pain, of hope, or heartbreak. You pray, curse, and endure this limbo, knowing that once the child comes or doesn't, nothing will ever be the same. You live in the space between life and death, forever bound to the endless waiting. Your hands are your greatest tools, and your greatest curse. They've delivered life, soothed pain, and carried the weight of countless births. But they've also known failure, stained with blood that never fully washes away. Each scar, each callus tells a story of desperate moments, of gripping wrists, guiding shoulders, and sometimes futile struggle. Your fingers move with practiced grace, feeling the shape of the child, the tension in the mother's body, the thin thread between life and death. Yet those same hands can provoke suspicion. Villagers watch them with a mixture of awe and fear, as if your touch might summon curses. You've felt the cold glare when you clean your hands, the whispered accusations of uncleanliness. The church preaches about purity, but your work is often messy, brutal, and soaked in fluids no one wants to speak of. Still, your hands persist, steady, determined, Even when your heart quakes, they are your lifeline to this world, your only defense against the darkness creeping closer with every birth. You wonder sometimes if they carry not just healing, but the weight of all the pain you could never prevent. You learn quickly that some things are better left unspoken. The horrors you witness, the tears, the death, the whispered curses, must be swallowed whole. Confiding in others means risking judgment, suspicion, or worse. You carry your burdens in silence, locked inside your own mind like a secret prison. The village expects strength, faith, and unwavering calm. But inside, you are shattered, haunted by faces of mothers who didn't survive, by the silence of newborns who never cried. You watch as gossip spins its web, twisting stories, blaming midwives for every tragedy. Speaking out could invite accusations of witchcraft or gossip that spreads like wildfire. So you swallow your fear and grief, pretending to be the pillar everyone needs. But the silence weighs heavy. It's a loneliness, deeper than any night, a wound that festers unseen. And still, you bear it, because you have no choice. Your silence is the price you pay to live, and to continue the impossible work of saving lives. The world around you is shifting, slowly, but unmistakably. New ideas creep in from distant cities, carried by scholars, doctors, and travelers. The old ways you've known since childhood, the herbs, the prayers, the whispered rituals, are being questioned. Barber surgeons sharpen their knives and tongues, promising science and progress. The church's grip tightens, demanding stricter control over who can touch a mother's body. You feel the pressure mounting, like a storm ready to break. Your place in this world, once unchallenged, is slipping away. Some midwives adapt, learning new techniques, but others resist, clinging to tradition like a lifeline. You wonder if there will be a place for you in this new order, or if you'll be cast aside, a relic of a forgotten time. The fear of irrelevance battles with the desire to protect the sacred craft you've sworn to uphold. Change is coming, whether you welcome it or not. And in this uneasy twilight, your fight for survival becomes more desperate than ever. Tonight is different. The air feels heavy, charged with an unspoken dread. You stand at the threshold of a small, dimly lit room, the walls smelling of sweat and stale straw. The mother's breaths come ragged, each one a battle. Your hands tremble, not from fear, but exhaustion, the weight of every birth before this pressing down on you. You call on every ounce of strength, every prayer, every herb. Outside, the village waits, hopeful and anxious. You know this might be your final chance to prove your worth. Minutes stretch like hours as the child fights for life, and you fight with it. When the cry finally breaks through, the fragile wail of new life, relief crashes over you, mingled with the bitter knowledge of what you've endured. This birth is a victory, but also a reminder. Your world is changing. The next dawn might bring new dangers, new rulers, and new battles. For now, though, you hold the child close, a brief, bright spark in the relentless darkness. You wonder what legacy you will leave behind. A faint whisper in the village, a shadow in the church records, or nothing at all. Your name may never be written in history books, but your blood runs through generations. The lives you saved, the children you brought into the world, carry your quiet mark. Midwives before you bore the same burdens, faced the same dangers, and you will pass your knowledge on too, if you can. Despite the pain, the fear, the loneliness, your work is sacred. It is a fierce, defiant act of love and survival. Though the world tries to erase you, you endure in every heartbeat you help start. Your story is woven into the very fabric of life itself. And even as the shadows lengthen and new powers rise, the legacy of the midwife remains, etched in blood, whispered in prayer, and carried in the trembling hands of every woman who dares to bring life into the world. Hey guys, thanks for sticking with me through this dark journey into the world of medieval midwives. You've seen the blood, the fear, the impossible choices, the crushing weight of a job nobody wanted to talk about but everyone desperately needed. Their lives were raw, brutal, and full of heartbreak, but also fierce resilience and quiet courage. The midwife's story is a reminder of how much human life has always depended on women's hands, their knowledge, and their strength, often overlooked, misunderstood, and persecuted. Next time you think about childbirth, remember the ghosts of those who faced the darkness without modern tools, without medicine, and often without mercy. And maybe, just maybe, give a little thought to the midwives, forgotten heroines, who delivered life in the shadow of death. Thanks for watching. If you found this haunting glimpse into the past as gripping as I did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more stories that dive deep into the lives history forgot. Until next time, stay curious, and maybe keep a little faith in the hands that bring life. Long ago, before there were hospitals and doctors in white coats, the ancient Greeks had a very different way to heal. They believed the best way to feel better was to take a nap in a special temple. This wasn't just resting. It was a holy act called incubation. If you were sick in ancient Greece, you didn't call a doctor. Instead, you packed your things and went on a journey to a healing temple. The most famous one was at a place called Epidaros. It was a quiet, beautiful place filled with marble buildings and the smell of plants and burning offerings. When you got there, you had to get clean first. You washed in special water, gave a small gift, like a rooster, and got ready to sleep in a dark, quiet room called the abaton. People slept on mats, and sometimes snakes crawled around. But these snakes were special. They were holy animals for the healing god, Asclepius. Snakes stood for new life and healing. The idea was simple. Fall asleep near the god, and he might visit you in a dream. In your dream, Asclepius could show you how to heal, maybe by touching your sore leg or giving you a magical herb. When you woke up, you told a temple priest your dream. The priest would explain what it meant and what you should do next. It was kind of like a dream doctor. This whole process, traveling, praying, dreaming, helped people feel like they were taking steps to heal. Some experts today say it was an early kind of mental health therapy. Others call it a powerful kind of belief. Either way, many people said they felt better. The temples even kept stories of people who were healed, carved into stone walls. These stories told of people who could see again, walk again, or feel strong after being weak. They weren't science, but they gave people hope. Healing wasn't just about fixing the body. It was about feeling connected to yourself, to others, and even to the gods. If you were lucky, healing came as a soft whisper, a peaceful dream, and maybe even a snake curled beside you. Now let's leave Greece and travel to ancient Mesopotamia. There, healing was not about dreams. It was about fighting evil spirits. In that land, people believed sickness wasn't just caused by germs. They thought bad spirits, angry gods, or jealous neighbors could send illness your way. So to get better, they tried to trap the bad spirits in a bowl. These bowls were called incantation bowls. They looked simple, but they were powerful. People wrote special spells on them in a spiral pattern. They wrote in their own language, calling on angels, gods, and magic to trap the demon inside. The bowl forever, kind of like a spiritual bug trap. Some bowls even had drawings of the evil spirit, tied up in chains. These pictures were meant to embarrass the demon, like a magical mugshot. Some even wrote the names of their enemies or other sorcerers they thought were causing trouble. The bowls were buried under doorways or in corners of homes. Why there? Because that's where bad spirits were believed to sneak in. The bowls acted like secret guards, protecting the family inside. Modern doctors might laugh at this, but there's a deep truth behind it. People wanted to feel safe. These Bowls gave their fears a shape and gave them hope. So if you ever feel a little strange and can't explain why, maybe check under your doormat. You just might find an old bowl, quietly protecting you with clay, words, and ancient hope. While Mesopotamians were trapping demons, the ancient Egyptians had their own healing magic. They used plants, perfumes, and potions, not just to heal the body, but to bring peace to the soul. One of their favorite healing tools was a flower called the blue lotus. It wasn't just pretty, it was powerful. When soaked in wine or turned into a special cream, the flower helped people feel calm and happy. It could ease sadness and pain. In pictures from ancient Egypt, people are shown holding lotus flowers at parties or offering them in temples. Even mummies were buried with them. The flower was believed to open your mind to healing dreams and let you feel close to the gods. But the blue lotus was just one of many tools. Egyptian medicine was full of amazing things. A long time ago in Egypt, people used a mix of real medicine and magical ideas to help sick people feel better. They wrote down over 800 different treatments in books, like the Ebers Papyrus, which was a really long scroll. Some of their cures were smart, like using honey, garlic, and special tree saps that we now know can kill germs. But some ideas were strange. For example, if you had a toothache, they might put a cooked mouse on your cheek, or say magic words to make the pain go away. Doctors in Egypt were called SWNW. They weren't just doctors, they were also priests. Temples acted like hospitals. People would come in, pray to the gods, and get treatments like special creams, prayers, and even sacrifices to gods like Sekhmet, who had the head of a lion. If someone got better, great. If not, they believed maybe the gods were just testing them. But Egyptians weren't only using magic. They also knew how to fix broken bones, do small surgeries, and even check people's heartbeats and pee to figure out what was wrong. Some Greek doctors later copied what the Egyptians did because it was pretty smart. Still, Egyptians always mixed healing with their religion. They believed getting better wasn't just about the body, it was also about connecting with the gods. Sometimes all you needed was a flower, a prayer, and a little faith. Far away in Siberia and across Native American lands, people had a very different way of healing. There, sickness was often seen as a sign that your soul had gotten lost or scared. The only person who could help? A shaman. Shamans were part doctor, part storyteller, and part spirit traveler. They did long rituals with drumming, singing, and dancing. Sometimes they fasted or used special plants that helped them see visions. They believed they could travel to a spirit world to find the lost soul and bring it back. These rituals weren't just pretend. Everyone in the village believed in them. Shamans wore animal masks, used drums to call the earth's heartbeat, and even acted out battles with invisible monsters to help the sick get better. Sometimes they chanted over someone, danced around a fire, or blew special smoke to clean bad energy. Healing wasn't just something you did alone. It was something the whole community took part in. The idea was that sickness wasn't only in the body. It was a crack in the spirit. And the shaman's job was to go into the dark, find the missing soul, and bring it home. In India, healing was different again. The people there created a system called Ayurveda, which means the knowledge of life. Ayurveda wasn't just about stopping sickness. It was about keeping your body, mind, and spirit in balance with the universe. Ayurveda says each person is made up of 3 energies called doshas: vata, air, and space; pitta, fire and water; kapha, earth and water. Your special mix of doshas decides how you feel, how you act, and even what foods are best for you. If your doshas get out of balance, you feel sick. The healer's job is to bring those doshas back into balance with healthy food, exercise, massages, meditation, and special herbs. One popular treatment was called Shirodhara. It involved pouring warm oil on your forehead to help you relax and open your third eye. Other treatments included body massages with oils, drinking special drinks to clean out the stomach, or even vomiting on purpose to feel better. It might sound weird, but they believed it cleaned out bad stuff from your body. Ayurvedic doctors also studied people closely. They looked at your tongue, listened to your voice, and even checked your pulse to understand what was wrong. But they also believed emotions like anger or greed could make you sick. So daily meditation, breathing exercises, pranayama, and chanting were also part of staying healthy. Ayurveda wasn't just a bunch of old ideas. It was a full system of science, philosophy, and spiritual health, and it's still used by many people around the world today. In ancient India, people believed that plants could help keep you healthy, and each plant had its own power and story. For example, turmeric helped with swelling, ashwagandha gave you energy, and neem cleaned your body. These weren't just medicines. People believed they had spirit and meaning, often connected to gods or legends. If someone got sick, they didn't see it as just bad luck. They believed it meant something was out of balance inside. The goal wasn't to fight sickness, but to bring the body, mind, and spirit back into harmony, often using warm oil. Lots of warm oil. While India worked on balancing the body's energies, China also created a healing system focused on energy. It was called Traditional Chinese Medicine, or TCM. In TCM, health was all about the flow of qi, pronounced qi, which is like invisible energy moving through your body. If qi got stuck or blocked, you felt sick. If it flowed smoothly, you felt well. They also believed in yin and yang, two opposite forces like hot and cold or dark and light. Too much of one and not enough of the other could make you feel bad. So healers would ask things like, are you too fiery? Not enough water energy? Chinese healers didn't just check your temperature. They looked at your tongue, listened to your voice, and felt your pulse in different spots to understand what was happening inside. Sometimes they said things like, your liver is angry, or your kidney feels scared. It may have sounded poetic, but it helped them heal people. One famous treatment was acupuncture, putting tiny needles in the skin to help the energy flow better. It sounds scary, but many people found it relaxing. Other treatments included cupping, putting hot cups on your back, burning herbs, gentle movements called qigong, and using special foods and plants like ginger and ginseng to help the body heal. A very old Chinese book called The Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon explained all of this. It showed that the body wasn't just a bunch of parts. It was a small version of the whole universe. So a stomachache wasn't just about food. It could be about sadness or stress. Healing meant getting all parts of life back in tune, like fixing the strings of a musical instrument. In Africa, healing was also very special and very social. It wasn't just about fixing one sick person in a room. It was about bringing the whole community, family, and even ancestors into the healing process. In many African cultures, when someone got sick, it was seen as a sign that something in the world had gone wrong. Not just inside the person, but in their connections with others or with the spirit world. For example, in southern Africa, sangomas are special healers. They talk to spirits and help people heal. To find out what's wrong, a sangoma might throw bones, shells, or little objects onto a mat. The way they land tells a story, like a puzzle from the ancestors. Once they know what's wrong, maybe a broken rule, a sad spirit, or family trouble, they do a ritual to help. This could include dancing, singing, burning plants, or even offering an animal. Drums, music, and movement aren't just for fun. They help bring healing energy and call on spirit helpers. Plants are also very important. Herbal healers, called inyanga, know a lot about roots, leaves, and tree bark that can help with fever, pain, or other problems. Some herbs are made into tea. Others are rubbed on the skin or used in ceremonies. But in these traditions, healing isn't just about medicine. It's about doing what's right. Maybe someone needs to say sorry, confess a secret, or do a special cleaning ritual to feel better. If someone broke a rule, like disrespecting an elder or crossing a sacred place, that could also cause illness. So healing might mean talking to your family, praying, or even using chicken feathers and ash in a ceremony. In the end, these cultures believed one thing: you are not alone. You are part of a big, living web of family, ancestors, nature, and spirit. And when something goes wrong, the healer listens, learns, and helps you put all the pieces back together. In many Native American cultures, healing wasn't just about fixing a sore arm or a stomachache. It was about healing the whole person: body, mind, heart, and spirit. People believed that sickness happened when things got out of balance, with yourself, your family, nature, or even the spirit world. One of the most powerful healing ceremonies was called the sweat lodge. It wasn't just about getting hot. It was about being reborn, like starting fresh. The lodge looked like a small round hut made from tree branches and covered with blankets or animal skins. Inside, it was dark and very hot. In the middle of the lodge, people placed hot stones called grandfathers in a pit. Water mixed with special herbs was poured on the stones to make steam. People sat in a circle, guided by a leader. They sang songs, said prayers, and let go of sadness or pain. It was hot, hard, and emotional, but also healing. The lodge was like the belly of the earth, where people could come to be cleaned and made new. The sweat lodge happened in rounds. Each round had a theme, like giving thanks, asking for forgiveness, or remembering ancestors. People sometimes had visions, strong feelings, or deep peace. It wasn't always easy, but many came out feeling lighter and stronger. Other native healing traditions included smudging, where herbs like sage or sweetgrass were burned. The smoke was used to clean a person or a place. There were also healing songs passed down for generations that were sung to help people feel better. Some groups used sand paintings, where colorful patterns made from crushed rock helped fix a person's spiritual energy. The most important part of all these traditions was connection to the land, to other people, to the past, and to the spirit world. Healing was never done alone. It was done with the help of others, of nature, and of something greater. Whether it was through fire, steam, or song, the goal was always the same: to find balance again, to remember who you are, and to walk forward with strength. When we look at healing from different ancient cultures, like Greek dream temples or native sweat lodges, we notice something amazing. Healing was never just about the body. It was about the heart, the spirit, the feelings, and the community. People used many tools: lotus plants, singing bowls, needles, drums. But they all had one goal: to bring balance back. In ancient times, being healthy didn't just mean not sick. It meant feeling whole, inside and out. Some people focused on qi, the energy inside the body. Others danced or prayed. Some sat in temples and waited for dreams to guide them. And even if the treatments didn't always work the way science says today, they still helped. A bowl with writing might not kill germs, but it could calm your heart. A shaman's chant might not heal a broken bone, but it could help a person feel understood. Here's what's amazing. Today, modern doctors are starting to use some of these old ideas. They now believe things like meditation, music, plants, and even certain rituals can help us heal. Some hospitals even offer calming smells or quiet places to rest, just like ancient temples once did. So what do these old healing rituals teach us? Not just how to use herbs or sing chants, but how to understand ourselves. We aren't machines that need fixing. We're living systems that need care, like gardens that need sunshine, water, and love. Sometimes a soft drumbeat or the smell of sage can heal a place inside us that medicine can't reach. Because in the end, healing is not just about science, it's about being human. And ancient people, even with all their mystery and magic, understood that better than most. Long before crowns and rings, people wore jewelry made from tiny seashells. These weren't just decorations, they meant something. In places like Blombos Cave in South Africa, scientists found shell beads that are over 75,000 years old. People had carefully pierced and polished them. But why would early humans make jewelry when life was already hard? The answer is simple: to communicate. These beads told stories: who you were, what you believed, or how you felt. Just like healing, they weren't just for looks, they were full of meaning. Jewelry today is often seen as something fancy or just for looks. But long ago, jewelry had a much bigger meaning. It was like a silent language. A necklace could tell others who you were, what family you came from, or if you were ready to get married. Jewelry was like wearing your story on your body, without saying a word. Early jewelry wasn't made of gold or diamonds. It came from nature. People used bird claws, animal teeth, shiny stones, and carved bones. Nothing was thrown away. Everything could mean something special. A tooth from a wild animal worn around the neck wasn't just cool. It said, "I survived this." It was a sign of bravery, protection, and even spiritual power. Some of the first beads were from the sea, which means even people who lived far from the ocean traded to get them. This shows us that people were already sharing and trading long ago. Jewelry was a way to carry your culture and your story wherever you went. But it wasn't just about looks or trade. Some people believed these items had magic. Shells were linked. To water, bones reminded people of their ancestors, and teeth stood for strength. These objects were worn close to the body to protect people from sickness, bad luck, or evil spirits. The moment humans started making and wearing jewelry was a big step. It showed they were thinking about who they were and how others saw them. A small shell on a string wasn't just pretty. It showed that someone belonged, that they had meaning, and that they had survived. So no, ancient humans weren't simple or foolish. They were artists, storytellers, and thinkers. They carved their stories into bones and shells and wore them with pride. As time went on, during the Ice Age, jewelry became even more meaningful. It wasn't just worn while alive, it was buried with people when they died. In places like Russia, scientists found a grave from 30,000 years ago. A child, probably no older than 10, was buried wearing a tunic with over 4,000 tiny ivory beads. Each bead was carved from mammoth tusk and took hours to make. The whole outfit likely took thousands of hours. All that effort for a child. That tells us how deeply people cared. Jewelry had become more than decoration. It was sacred. It was a way to say goodbye. Maybe it was even a promise to the next world. These ancient pieces weren't made quickly. They had patterns, shapes, and balance. People carved animals into pendants and made bracelets from reindeer antlers. It took skill, time, and meaning. Some materials even tell us about long-distance travel. For example, Baltic amber has been found far from the Baltic region. People were trading across large areas. Some items, like jet, a shiny black stone, were so special they were used even thousands of years later. Red ochre, a red powder that looks like blood, was used to dye beads or clothes for burials, maybe to show life or rebirth. Jewelry also showed how important someone was. If a person was buried with a lot of beautiful jewelry, it meant others cared about them. Maybe they were a leader, a healer, or just very loved. Some pieces may have been love gifts, family signs, or gifts given when a child became an adult. We don't know for sure. There are no written notes. But we can guess from what we find in old graves and villages. Even in the cold, dangerous times of the Ice Age, people still made beauty. Jewelry was a way to say, "I matter." It was a quiet way of fighting back against the hard life they lived. Later, in the Neolithic and Bronze Ages, jewelry became even more powerful. It wasn't just pretty. It was used for protection and magic. Small charms and pendants were believed to keep people safe from bad luck, sickness, or evil. People thought these objects connected them to gods and spirits. In ancient Egypt, jewelry, like scarabs, ankhs, and the Eye of Horus, weren't just nice shapes. They were like spiritual armor. The scarab, a beetle, stood for rebirth and change. It was buried with the dead to help them on their journey to the afterlife. Kids wore fish-shaped charms to protect them from drowning. Kings were buried with gold jewelry shaped like snakes and birds to call on gods for protection, even in death. Even the materials mattered. Gold wasn't just shiny, it was believed to be godlike and never die. Blue stones like lapis lazuli were thought to help people see the spirit world. Other stones like turquoise, carnelian, and faience all had their own meanings. Jewelry had become more than a thing you wore. It was a tool for power, protection, memory, and meaning. A long time ago, people didn't just wear jewelry to look nice. They believed it could protect them from danger, sickness, and bad luck. In places like Mesopotamia, people wore special beads and carved stones with pictures of gods and magical symbols. Even kings wore heavy jewelry, not just to show off, but because they thought it kept them safe. In ancient Greece, soldiers wore tiny carved stones called amulets when they went to battle. These had pictures of gods or monsters that were supposed to keep them safe and strong. One popular design was Medusa's head. People believed it scared away evil, and it wasn't just rich people who wore these things. Everyday folks wore simple versions made from cheaper materials like clay or bronze. Whether it was a bracelet, necklace, or something sewn into clothes, jewelry helped people feel safe. It was like wearing a tiny prayer or a lucky charm. Jewelry wasn't only about protection. As cities and empires grew, jewelry also became a way to show power and wealth. It told others, "I'm important." In ancient Sumer, a very old civilization, a queen named Puabi was buried with a huge collection of gold and shiny blue stones. She wore big earrings, necklaces, and a beautiful cape made from beads. This wasn't just for beauty, it was a way to show she was powerful, even after death. In Egypt, pharaohs, like kings, wore gold and colorful stones to show they were part god. Their crowns had snakes on them to protect them. Even rich kids had rings and lucky charms. Jewelry showed who you were and how important your family was. In ancient China, the most special jewelry was made from a green stone called jade. Jade wasn't just pretty. It stood for goodness, strength, and long life. Some emperors were even buried in full suits made of jade, sewn together with gold thread. They believed jade would protect their body and spirit forever. All around the world, from Greece to Rome and China to Egypt, jewelry meant more than just fashion. Roman leaders wore rings with family symbols. These rings were like keys or ID cards. Jewelry could also be used in politics. A necklace could be a gift or a secret message. It helped people make deals, get married, or show loyalty to a king or a god. By the time people started writing things down, jewelry was everywhere. It wasn't just decoration, it had deep meaning. Jewelry showed who had power, who believed in what, and who belonged to which group. And behind every piece of shining jewelry, there were skilled workers. These ancient jewelers worked with fire and tools. They weren't just making pretty things, they were using art and science. In the Bronze Age, jewelry making became even more advanced. People learned how to melt and shape metals. They made tiny gold beads, thin wire designs, and very detailed animal shapes. In Crete, artists made golden bees with little drops of honey. In Egypt, goldsmiths used special tools to shape fire and pour metal into molds. One of the coolest treasures from King Tut's tomb was a jewel made from glass created by a meteor hitting the desert. In India and Mesopotamia, jewelers started setting gems into gold. They used simple drills powered by string to carve tiny symbols into stones. These carvings were used like signatures, or even magical charms. One amazing trick was called lost wax casting. A jeweler would shape the item in wax, cover it with clay, heat it up, and the wax would melt out. Then, they'd pour in hot metal. This let them make beautiful hollow metal jewelry. A long time ago, people started making jewelry using new tools and smart ideas. They poured hot metal into clay molds to make light and beautiful rings, earrings, and necklaces. As time went on, places like ancient Greece and Etruria had special shops just for making jewelry. These shops had people who carved designs, worked with metal, polished pieces, and cut gems. Jewelry became more than just decoration. People added tiny hinges, locks, and secret boxes. It showed how clever people were. and how much they had learned about art and tools. Jewelry told the story of the people who made it and the people who wore it. As trade between countries grew, jewelry became even more important. It wasn't just about looking nice anymore. It became like money, a gift, or even a message. A single gemstone could travel across deserts and oceans before being worn by a queen or a warrior. For example, there was a shiny blue stone called lapis lazuli. It was found only in what is now Afghanistan, but it was used in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and even Greece. This means people were carrying it thousands of miles through tough lands, just for its beauty and meaning. Jewelry started to show not just fashion, but power and connection. The Phoenicians were great traders. They sailed across the sea sharing glass beads and designs from different cultures. Egyptian flower shapes showed up in Spain, and Assyrian art made its way to the Mediterranean. The Silk Road brought pearls from the Gulf, rubies from India, and jade from China all the way to Europe. These weren't just pretty things. They were symbols of friendship, peace, and trade. A jade pin from China found in Central Asia could show a political friendship. A turquoise ring from Persia in a Greek market meant different cultures were mixing. Rulers also gave jewelry as gifts to make peace or show power. They gave bracelets, belts, or crowns to make deals or stop wars. Even regular people used jewelry as money. In some places, women kept their savings in jewelry like rings or bracelets. If times got hard, they could sell a necklace to buy food or travel. Jewelry became something everyone understood. It said, "This is special, and so am I." Later on, jewelry also became a symbol of love and promises. Long before diamond rings, people gave each other beads, rings, or bangles to show love or marriage. In ancient Egypt, couples gave each other rings made of reeds, ivory, or gold. The round shape meant forever, and they wore it on the third finger of the left hand. People thought that finger had a vein going straight to the heart. In ancient Rome, engagement rings were made of iron to show strength. Some had pictures of the couple holding hands, a design called the feather that was still used hundreds of years later. These rings weren't just pretty, they were also part of legal promises, like who got what when someone passed away. In other places, people gave necklaces or bracelets to show love. Some tribes gave each other matching charms made of tooth, bone, or wood. They believed these objects stayed magically connected, even when the couple was far apart. In India, brides wear lots of gold jewelry at weddings, like nose rings, anklets, and bangles. Each piece means something: good luck, safety, or having children. The groom ties a black bead necklace called the Mangal Sutra around the bride's neck to show they're married. It's like a wedding ring in other parts of the world. Jewelry could also carry secret messages. In old Europe, people wore posy rings with sweet love notes engraved inside. Some had tiny compartments for perfume, a lock of hair, or a tiny picture of someone they loved. Jewelry became a way to hold memories. It was a small object full of big meaning: love, trust, and connection. People wore it close to their hearts, kissed it when they missed someone, and passed it on to children and grandchildren. It softly said, "You are not forgotten. We are still connected." Long ago, even before people wrote their promises on paper, they showed them with jewelry. People wore rings, necklaces, and bracelets, not just to look nice, but to feel close to something bigger. Jewelry wasn't just for beauty or money. It was also for protection, for blessings, and for showing someone's special job or role. In ancient times, a necklace was more than just decoration. It could be a prayer, a shield, or a way to talk to the gods. In places like Mesopotamia, priests and priestesses wore big, beautiful necklaces and headpieces during special ceremonies. These weren't just pretty. They were made to look like stars, animals from myths, or even weapons from the gods. In ancient Egypt, jewelry was used to bring power and luck. High priests wore pieces that helped them connect to the gods. One famous necklace called the Mainat was worn by priestesses of the goddess Hathor. They would shake it during rituals to make the goddess happy. Another piece, called the Usk collar, looked like the sun's path across the sky and showed a connection to the sun god Ra. In India, jewelry had deep meaning in Hindu and Buddhist religions. People believed that earrings, bangles, and anklets helped with energy and health. Gold was thought to be pure and never-ending, so it was often used for gods and temples. Even statues of gods wore gold jewelry. In the Americas, the Maya and Aztecs loved a green stone called jade. It was more valuable than gold. They believed jade held the energy of life. Priests wore jade pendants shaped like gods, and kings were buried with jade in their mouths to help their souls in the next life. Even early Christians used jewelry for protection. They wore small necklaces with crosses or pictures of saints to keep away sickness, bad dreams, or evil spirits. Whether someone was rich or poor, many people wore jewelry to feel safe, lucky, and close to something greater. Jewelry was like a string between the heavens and the earth, something holy you could wear. As years passed, civilizations rose and fell, but jewelry stayed. Sometimes it was buried in tombs. Sometimes it was passed from one family to the next. A simple string of beads grew into something very special, a memory holder, a way to show who someone was, or even the only thing left. Behind archaeologists today find jewelry in ancient graves. From Scandinavia to Africa, a brooch might show where a person came from. A ring could mean they were married. A necklace made of many types of beads might tell us they traded with faraway lands. Even how people wore jewelry, across the chest, in their hair, or hidden under clothes, tells us how they thought of themselves. Jewelry was made to last. It was passed from mother to daughter, from warrior to son. It became a gift, a memory, and a way to stay connected to family and the past. In times of danger, when people had to leave their homes, jewelry was often the one thing they took. A bracelet could carry more meaning than a whole house. Gold doesn't rust. Gems don't rot. That's why ancient jewelry is still here, thousands of years later. It's like a time capsule that holds not just the shape of a person's hand, but their feelings too. You can almost feel their love, hope, sadness, or joy in every tiny scratch or missing stone. And even today, we do the same. We wear wedding rings passed down from grandparents. We wear lockets with pictures close to our hearts. We save jewelry in boxes, not because it's expensive, but because it reminds us of someone we love. So when we study ancient jewelry, we're not just learning about fashion. We're learning about what people cared about most: being seen, being safe, being loved, and being remembered. Jewelry tells the story of us, strong, personal, and made to last forever. At first, the underground rooms near the village of Naor in France might seem like just storage caves, but they're much more than that. It feels like someone turned the world underground into a secret village. What makes it strange isn't just how big it is, but how little we know about who built it or why. No one really knows the full story. Experts think people started digging these tunnels sometime between the 9th and 13th centuries, during the Middle Ages, but no one is sure if it was made for hiding, praying, or something else. One idea is that monks or villagers dug the tunnels to hide from Viking attacks or wars like the 100 Years' War. This idea makes sense. The chalk in the ground is soft and easy to dig. They made smart air holes so people could light fires without running out of air. From above, it was hard to see the tunnels, which made it the perfect secret hiding spot. Over time, the underground place got bigger. People dug wells for water. They made chimneys that were hidden in trees so smoke could escape without being seen. They even brought horses underground to keep them safe from enemies. But somehow, people forgot about this place. It was hidden for many years until a priest found it again in the 1800s. That was just the beginning of its story. What might have started as a place to hide turned into something more, like a safe space, a wonder, and later, a place that even soldiers used during war. Still, one thing is clear. Naurs wasn't built just because people were afraid. It was built to last. Walking through it today feels like walking through a plan for a secret city. The walls are cool and smooth, and you can feel how much work it took to dig them. Everything was done by hand, pickaxe by pickaxe. No big machines, no rushing, just careful work over many years. The chalk was soft, so digging wasn't too hard, but keeping the tunnels strong and safe was the real challenge. How do you build rooms underground without them falling in? How do you let in air without anyone above noticing? Somehow, the people of Naurs figured it out. The rooms were built smartly. Some were small and easy to keep warm. Others were used to store food so it stayed fresh. Big halls show that people met or gathered together underground. There were also special spaces just for animals like horses, which means people expected to live there for weeks, not just a day or two. One of the most amazing things are the air vents, long shafts that go from underground all the way up to the surface. Some were hidden with leaves or grass so enemies wouldn't notice. These vents let people breathe, cook, and stay alive without being seen. It looks like it took hundreds of years to finish building the tunnels. There's no sign of people being forced to dig or rushing. It was most likely a group effort, built slowly and carefully over generations. This wasn't a king's castle. It was a place made by normal people, working together to stay safe. The rooms may not be fancy, but they're strong and thoughtful. Doorways are smooth, ceilings are safe, and walls are neat. Even without decorations, there's beauty in the shape and pattern. The people who built this place worked with care, not just to survive, but to make it last. No one knows for sure who started building Naurs, but many believe it was monks. In the Middle Ages, this part of France was often attacked, first by Vikings, then during other wars. Monks often lived in lonely places, and sometimes built tunnels under their churches to stay safe. Naurs fits that idea. It's far from big cities, and it has a chapel carved into the rock. The small church room has an altar and a curved ceiling. It's simple, but feels special, clearly made for worship. There are faded markings on the wall, maybe once words or symbols, now lost with time. This wasn't just a storage room, it was a holy place. Even if monks started it, they weren't the only ones who used it. Over time, local villagers came to hide in Naurs too, especially during battles or when foreign soldiers came through. Stories passed down say up to 3,000 people could hide there at once. That's not just a hiding place. That's like a whole secret town under the ground. Imagine the dark halls filled with families whispering, the smell of food cooking, and the sound of pots gently clinking. All of this, hidden from the world above. Sometimes, when life was dangerous above ground, people went underground to stay safe. In a secret place called Naurs, families could live hidden while wars and attacks happened above them. You could hear quiet sounds, maybe tools or a baby crying, deep under the earth. But even though they were hiding, the people didn't live like animals. They had rooms, hallways, places to rest, and even a spot to pray. This place wasn't just a messy cave. It was planned. People probably made rules. Someone had to decide who slept where, who watched the air vents, and who gave out the food. We don't know those rules today, but the tunnels show that there was order, not chaos. Naurs was more than a hiding place. It was like a secret village underground. People worked together and built it because they had to. It helped them survive for hundreds of years, without anyone above ever knowing. But over time, people forgot about Naurs. By the 1700s, almost no one remembered it was there. Plants grew over the entrance. The stories weren't passed down. As life got safer, people stayed above ground. The city below was forgotten, not covered by dirt, but by time. There's no sign Naurs was used in the big battles like the Napoleonic Wars or the French Revolution. Even in the 1800s, no one really talked about it. It became a legend, like a bedtime story about hidden rooms and ghostly monks. Then, in the 1880s, a priest named Father Ernest Danicourt heard strange rumours. A shepherd boy had said the ground sounded hollow. Some thought he was crazy, but Danicourt wanted to know more. He cleared away the plants and found something amazing. Using only ropes and lanterns, he went into the dark. What he found was shocking. Hundreds of rooms, each one carefully made. Danicourt cleaned them up, made maps, and opened the place to visitors. People came to see the hidden underground city and were amazed. How had it stayed hidden for so long? Even Danicourt didn't understand it all. He didn't know exactly when or why it was built. Some rooms were sealed off. Some tunnels were small and deep. The more he explored, the more mysteries he found. Nora's was no longer forgotten, but it was still full of questions. A silent city with no one left. Only the rooms and shadows waiting quietly. Then, not long after Danicourt's discovery, a terrible war came. World War I. The land above Nora's turned into a deadly battlefield. Mud, barbed wire, and bombs covered the fields of northern France. But below, something special happened again. Soldiers, French, British, Australian, and Canadian, found Nora's. Some were brought down for rest or shelter. Some just wanted to see the strange hidden city. And they didn't just visit, they left their names on the walls. Over 2,000 soldiers carved words into the soft chalk. Their names, army ranks, dates, and even towns they were from. It became like a secret guestbook, a message to the future. Some wrote fancy notes with symbols. Others just wrote something simple like Tom 1916 or J. Carter 14th Battalion. These weren't just doodles. These were memories, left by men who weren't sure they would ever go home. Many of the messages were from Australian soldiers. They might have felt a connection to cave systems back in Australia. Or maybe they were just amazed to step from the horror of the war into a quiet city under the earth. Some names were carved just before the terrible Battle of the Somme began. In July 1916, many of those men died, but their writings stayed behind. Today, those carvings help researchers trace the stories of soldiers and even help their families learn more about them. The hidden city became a living memorial, not with statues, but with words scratched in, stone by men facing war. Now, in the silence, their words still whisper, "I was here. I mattered. Please don't forget me." That's what many young soldiers were trying to say when they carved their names into the soft white walls of Nord. Nord is an underground city in France, but it's not just famous because it's old or mysterious. What makes it special and sad is what's written on its walls. There are thousands of carvings there, not from monks or old villagers, but from World War I soldiers. These young men were far from home and stuck in a terrible war. Life felt strange and scary, so to feel human again, they picked up sharp tools and carved their names, dates, and messages into the chalky walls. They didn't just scribble for fun. Each name was carefully carved. Each one said, "I'm still here. I'm real." Some wrote full names, ranks, and dates, like P. Kelly, 3rd Battalion, March 1916. Others were short, just initials, a word like home or peace. Many soldiers carved names together, grouped with their friends or battalion. Whole walls were filled with names from the same army group, especially from Australia. It wasn't to show off, it was to be remembered. Some carved the names of their hometowns, Sydney, Perth, or Manchester. Others drew symbols, crosses, animals, army badges. One soldier even wrote, "Goodbye, France." Another simply wrote, "Still alive." Many of these carvings were made right before the big and terrible Battle of the Somme, where thousands died in just hours. These peaceful carvings now feel like a deep breath before a terrible storm. Today, people like military historians and family researchers study these names. Families from Australia, the UK, and Canada have come to Naur to find names of their grandfathers and great-uncles. They walk through the tunnels, touch the carvings, and feel close to the people who made them. Naur isn't just a cool old place anymore. It's a quiet book made of stone, a place where the past still speaks. But after the war, the tunnels went quiet again. Most of the soldiers never came back. The names they carved got covered by dust, dirt, and time. For years, tourists visited Naur without knowing what was really on the walls. Lights and footsteps even started to damage the carvings. Some people added new graffiti without understanding what they were ruining. No one really looked closely. No one listened. Then in 2014, something amazing happened. A French archaeologist named Gilles Prilot was studying Naur when he found the soldier carvings. Lots of them. He realized this wasn't just an old place. It was a secret World War I memory book. It was like opening a time capsule. A peaceful place that held the last messages of young men about to go to war. The discovery made the world take notice. Naur wasn't just a tourist stop anymore. It was a place that held real, powerful history. Teams of experts came to scan the tunnels and record every name. Families traveled from far away to find the names of their loved ones. Schools brought kids to learn history by walking through the tunnels themselves. Part of the site is now protected, so the chalk doesn't get damaged again. Thanks to this discovery, people no longer just see stone. They see stories. They feel the emotions left behind. Hope, fear, bravery, and love. Naur teaches us something very important. You don't need to be famous to be remembered. You just need to be human. Even in the darkest times, people want to be seen, to be known, to say, I was here. And now, because someone finally stopped to look, we remember them. Naur is the biggest place underground where soldiers from world, where I left their names and messages carved into the walls. It wasn't just a few soldiers passing through. Lots and lots of men stayed there, hiding from the war above. They carved their last thoughts into the soft chalk walls. When people found all these carvings, it made a big splash around the world. Researchers started looking up the names and matching them with army records. They found out who these soldiers were, which units they belonged to, and what happened to them. Families in Australia, the UK, and Canada were contacted. Some found out for the first time that their grandfathers or great-uncles had been in Naur. Others saw that the names on medals or letters were actually carved in the chalk so far away. At the same time, people worked hard to save and protect Naur. Parts of the underground tunnels were scanned with 3D cameras. New lights were added to protect the walls. Signs were put up to explain why Naur was so important now. Some parts with carvings were closed off so visitors wouldn't damage them by accident. What came out of this was more than just digging up old things. It became a way for people to connect. Visitors don't just look at old stone walls. They touch history. They run their fingers over the carved names and feel close to soldiers who lived long ago. It's not just about remembering the dead. It's about hearing what they left behind. Because of this, Naur is no longer forgotten. It became what it always was. A message in the dark, waiting for the world to notice. Today, Naur is more than just an amazing old underground city or a place full of war memories. It is a symbol of strength, human creativity, and the strange quiet between being alive and being gone. Naur is not just about one moment in time. It tells many stories from different times, all mixed together. It started as a place where monks might have hidden. Then it became a safe place for villagers, and later, a refuge for soldiers during the war. After that, people forgot about it for a long time, until it turned into an accidental war memorial, made by the soldiers themselves. Naur is hard to put into one box. It is more than a history site. It is a place where people prayed, were scared, rested, and lived. The cold chalk walls have heard the breath of monks, villagers, and soldiers across hundreds of years. Each left something behind. Today, Naur is a place where people can think and remember, especially the families of the World War I soldiers who left their names there. Walking through Naur today is not like walking on a battlefield or going to a museum. It is like walking through a shared memory that was hidden but now breathes again. You don't just walk through stone, you walk through stories. Now, French and Australian historians work together to match the carvings with army records. School children visit to learn history in a real way, by seeing what someone else carved with their own hands, during a time when they didn't know if they would live to see the next week. Maybe the most important thing Noah teaches us is about legacy. It wasn't built to be famous or glorious. It was made because people had to survive. But because it lasted so long, its quiet strength became its power. It reminds us that history is not only told through big speeches or statues. Sometimes it's whispered in chalk, hidden in dark tunnels, waiting for someone to remember. Noah doesn't shout. It is quiet, but it lasts. And by lasting, it tells us about the human need to leave a mark where we are scared. To say, we were here. We mattered.